Welcome to International Love Story, the podcast about long distance and multicultural relationships. My name is Christina, as you might know, and I'm gonna be quiet for a few seconds. We are parked close to the sea right now because we made it a couple of weeks ago to Greece, and after 4 or 5 days of rain and clouds, we decided to make our way back to the sea. So this is where we are currently parked, and I moved outside because Nacho was just having a few calls, and living on just a few square meters, the two of us, can be quite tricky from time to time. So I decided to move my office outside for the day. I hope the background noise is not going to be too annoying right now. But yeah, it's really nice. I'm sending some love and some sun your way, and it's just amazing to be here. But obviously this is not what this podcast episode is going to be about, because this podcast episode is going to be about Abe and Elaine. They both have a podcast as well. You might even know them. Their podcast is called Love is in the Air. And I was just so excited to finally be able to talk to them and to get to know them a little bit better. I'd say let's just dive directly into the conversation with Elaine and Abe. Enjoy today's podcast episode. Today I'm super honored because I was waiting for this to happen for so long already. Because we are in contact with Abe and with Elaine since a while already, since actually I think almost when we started our podcast. I found your podcast, guys, because you have a podcast as well, which is called Love is in the Air, which is covering long distance relationships as well, but also commuter marriages, which is what you're actually doing right now. So I just don't want to get into detail too much, as I'm also listening to your podcast. So I know a few things. I kind of know your story. But before we get there, I'm dying to know who you are. So if you could just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us, and vice versa. I've been following you guys, and oh my gosh, you living in your van. It's so cool. I'm always excited to see what your next adventure is and where you guys are. But yes, I'm Elaine Romero, and Abe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, yes, I'm her husband, Abe Romero now, and so we were in a long distance relationship. Now we are in a commuter marriage, so we share a last name, and I think that's fun. For you talked about the multicultural side. Now Elaine gets to claim that she's Hispanic.
I know, well. I like it. I get to have Romero, a cultural name. Yeah. I like to pretend I'm Hispanic, even though I'm not. But
where's this coming from? That you like to pretend you're Hispanic?
I don't know. It's just, I just think it's very cultural, and I just really like it. I'm very attracted to the fact that Abe is half Mexican anyway, and so it's just something that I'm super proud of, to be married to him. So
she doesn't do it on the serious note. She just has fun with it.
No, I don't really pretend. Yeah. Right? No.
Okay.
I tease my children. I'm like, I'm more spicy now that I'm a Romero, and my kids are like, "Oh, please be quiet." They're like, "You're still boring, Mom."
Oh, no, you're not. No.
I mean, we are.
It's not boring at all. The relationship you're having, like the experience you've made the last few years. As I mentioned, I'm listening to your podcast as well. Even though to be honest, I didn't listen to all episodes, but quite a few. And listening to you is just so refreshing. It's like there's so much energy between you guys. So I wouldn't consider you as boring, to be honest.
I know. I think my kids just tease me. Every mom is boring to a teenager or a college age student. But yeah, we were in a long distance relationship first between we're both in the US, so we're not international. We are about 2, 3 states away. Is it 2 states away?
Yep.
And about 3 hour flight. So it's not, we don't have as much of a journey as some of the probably your listeners do. Some of your listeners probably hear about us and say, "Oh, wow, that's easy, right? Just a couple states away." But for us, the more the challenges is that we really knew we wanted to be married, and it was like, wow, are we going to do this? Are we actually going to get married and then go back to each of our homes? And that was rough, but we're making it happen. There are a lot of commuter marriages out there that do this for different reasons, and our reason is that we both had children from previous marriages. So Abe and I are a little older. We're both 50. We both had past marriages and kiddos. And when you go through a divorce, it's something that's heartbreaking. And I think the thing that's still heartbreaking for both of us is just that our children had to go through that. And so when we were starting to date, it was like neither of us were going to move away from our kids, and neither of us were going to put our kids through moving. They have to have access to their other parents. And so it was like, well, we're going to make the sacrifice and we're going to do this. And it's been great. Our kids are all on board, and it actually has made things really positive in blending our family together.
Mm.
Mhm.
So it's even a long distance patchwork family, if you could say so.
Yeah. Yeah. In
May
fact,
I?
I just texted all 4 kids and say, "Hey, who wants to do a family game night tomorrow night?" And so our kids are great. Like I have one graduate, I have one who's 23, one who's 19, and then Abe has 14-year-old twins. And all of them are game. They like playing, we all do online. We don't just do online dates together. We do online game nights as a whole family. So it's super fun.
Mm, mm. Which I just love that, as I mentioned before, that there's obviously this energy between you. I mean, obviously it wouldn't work because it's a lot of effort. Like you had to overcome a lot of challenges, and you guys, you just went for it. So you decided to not only get into a relationship, but also to get married, to yeah, to grow your family together. And I can imagine that it wasn't easy in the beginning. Now I don't know if this is actually something you would like to talk about. Basically the challenges, especially in the beginning, because I know it's quite a while already. But if you look back, what was the most challenging part of being in this type of relationship?
Mm.
Well, I think that one of the things that we started our podcast was to help couples that did have these challenges, and we kind of stumbled across the way of making mistakes and not knowing what to do. Didn't account for certain travel aspects. Didn't account for how hard it was to be apart from one another. And I don't think I think we've learned things and discovered things that have made that some of those aspects easier. But obviously the most challenging part is being apart
Mm,
from each other for a period of extended time. So, and we were just together last weekend and had an amazing time, and it was always great to be with one another. But then, even though we have a pretty short turnaround where we're seeing each other in 2 weeks, it's still you had that intimacy that you were waking up in each other's arms, and then now you don't
mm,
have that for a day or two or a week or two, and that's the hard part. That's the stuff you miss.
Yeah.
mm,
I think one of my darker moments, because there are dark moments, when you're in distance, when you find the person that you love and then you can't be with them, it just feels almost like, the universe, like, how cruel is that to me, right? But one of the moments that I remember hitting me the hardest was when Abe and I got married. We took that jump, we decided to make that commitment, And we're both all in. We went on our honeymoon to Jamaica, and we were staying at this kind of all inclusive like hotel where there was a lot of couples. So we got to know some other couples. And so you fly there and there's all these couples on the plane. And then when we flew home, I just saw all these couples excited, like they're leaving their honeymoon and they're going to go home and start their lives together. And I remember feeling in a dark place because I was like, I love this man. I want to be married to him, but we're not going home together. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm. Mm.
we're going to be separate. And are we completely crazy to do this, to actually be a married person and not get to be with your spouse all the time? And that was a super rough patch for me to kind of like, for some reason, it just really hit me seeing all these wide eyed, bright, bushy tailed, what's the term I'm looking for, Abe?
Bright-eyed.
Bright eyed and bushy tailed. Yeah. These, meaning that they had this twinkle in their eye and they were excited. And I was just like, oh, so that's the part that's really hard for me. And I think the other part that's really hard for me is I'm definitely a person who, when I've had a rough week or a hard day, um, when Abe just holds me, that really placates me and that helps my mental health. Like I need his physical touch to feel sometimes centered again. And there's weeks I don't get that, right? There's times I have a really rough week at work and or something difficult in my life, and I have to come home and just cope with it on my own. And that's really rough. So the
Yeah.
Mm.
physical, I agree with you, Abe. It's not being together. But for me, probably the hardest thing is the physical depletion. And I don't just mean sex, because that's part of it too, but it's more just not like holding each other, you know?
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
Well, and the other part too and that sounds horrible. Now maybe we should get divorced because I'm really depressed now. But what I wanted to kind of explain is that when Elaine and I first started talking and reconnecting, and maybe it's not this way for some people, but it is for me. Love just doesn't fall from the sky all the time, right? Or that person just doesn't fall from the sky all the time. So you're searching for something, you don't know if you're going to get it. I think both of us thought after our divorces that, will I ever find anybody again? Will I ever fall in love again? And it's not easy out there, kind of thing. And then, but when we connected, and I had been on some dates before, and she had been on some dates, and it just felt, this is going to be horrible. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But when we connected, and even though we were 2 states away, I knew immediately, and I think she knew pretty quickly after that, that I want to spend my life with this person. I don't care how far away she is.
Right.
And so that's when you talk about, oh, that other stuff sounds horrible, but I know that I would never find anybody else in the world like her. And
That's true.
I need to be with Elaine for the rest of my life. So
Right. Yeah. I was sounding a little bit like a downer, I'm sure, but she asked our dark parts.
That it's
But no, go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just wondering because I know that you guys like at some point you ways crossed a couple of times. So you know each other for quite a while already to be
Right.
realistic without even being aware of it or fully aware of it. Um
Right.
what I would just be interested in is so how much time did pass between your first date and the
Right.
moment you were like, okay, let's just do it, let's jump into it. Long distance relationship, later on long distance marriage, patchwork family, and what is the time frame we're talking about exactly?
I love that patchwork family. That's super cute. Yeah, so Abe and I actually grew up as little kids in the same church in San Diego, California. And so we were like 7, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Tina, because I have this memory of Abe being this like guy that was always rolling around in the dirt. Like he was just like this rough and tumble boy that you kind of avoided. You're like, ew, like there's Abe Romero, right? But I didn't like dislike you or anything like that. You were just kind of all boy and I was kind of all girl. So what was funny is we knew each other then, and but then we didn't go to the same schools. Like we went to separate junior high schools and high schools. I would see him here and there and be like, oh yeah, there's Abe Romero, but I didn't really like know him at that season of life. But we reconnected in our 20s, right, honey? It was like I was like 23.
Yeah, it was something like that, and we worked at the same gym
We were
together,
working at a gym.
and
Yeah.
I saw
And
her, yeah, and was like immediately was, "Whoa, that's Elaine?" I don't remember her looking like that, because
yeah,
she came out in this cute little leotard. She was a aerobics instructor,
I
and so I
was.
was smitten right away, and so I made a, not the best attempt to try to get to know her then, and she was already talking to somebody else, so that didn't quite happen for us then.
But
Um
I noticed him though. Like I remember at the time, I could tell Abe kind of liked me. I was talking to this other boy, but I was like, "Oh gosh, this is super interesting." And we had a, kind of fun talking then. We both worked in our church too. So what's interesting about that is we had that little interlude and then there was some sparks there, right? But it wasn't nothing happened. And then we both again went separate ways. Abe got married to someone else. I got married to someone else. We both were kind of in longer term marriages. And but we kind of followed each other on social media, right? Like it was like
Mhm.
I'd occasionally like a family picture of his and he occasionally like a family picture of mine. And then it was really interesting. It was like div- after my divorce and Abe was already divorced, someone I had gone off social media completely because it was just such a devastating time in my life. And when I came back on, someone was like, "Oh, I'm talking to Abe Romero on the other line." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember Abe." And so I refriended you, right, on social
Mhm.
media. And then that's kind of what happened. I think I didn't even know he was divorced, and you didn't know I was divorced, right?
Right, right, and then so, when we both found that out, then, I was running a marketing consultant agency, and I saw that she had her own business, and I thought, "Oh, what a clever way to reach out," and try to connect with her, under the guise of helping her company, and of course, I thought she was beautiful and everything, um, but I never thought realistically that it would ever work because I was in
Yeah,
Texas,
we
she was in California,
right.
ridiculous. But when we finally connected and started speaking to each other, it was so immediate.
Mhm.
Connection was so fast. So when you asked, like, from that moment on, how long did it take? I was on like Match.com. I had, messed around on like Tinder and Bumble and all the other dating sites. And I would go on a date periodically and no one knocked my socks off. It was all kind of very short-lived, boring. And I'm like thinking, okay,
Yeah,
anybody.
may I pretty just a quick question. I mean, you were mentioning also in your podcast that like getting back to dating was quite rough. Like, but how was it? Because I remember I'm also very bad in dating. I hate like, hey, where you from? How old are you? What are your hobbies? Da, 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 da,
Right.
da. So was it the same experience for you, or is dating
Well,
like an
it's even worse at our age, you know what I mean? When you're in your 40, because I was 45, right? What were
uh-huh.
you? You were 45 too, right,
Yeah, I
Abe?
was like 45 starting to date again, and it is weird, and I think also it's just this very strange dynamic now. I remember being on Match years and years and years ago, when it first started, and that being a different experience, and then this time around, it's like there's so many options for people. I think
Yeah,
they just wanna see what the next thing is, and the next thing, and the
yeah,
next thing,
yeah, yeah.
and so but what was funny about that is
Well,
that
and can I say one thing? So, Tina, I actually went on only one. I only went on one. I think it was like Christian Mingle. That's one, right?
Mhm.
So I went on Christian Mingle. I put up my profile and came back, and there was all these messages from people, and it was just like super weird. I cried because I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. And I shut it down. So I was on dating apps for one day. That was
Mm.
it. That's how
Well,
depressing it made me feel.
right, but the thing after I and again, I wasn't going on a ton of dates, but after our first conversation, I knew I wanted to be with her, and maybe it was our second conversation, but I said, "I'm shutting down all my match accounts and Tinder and all that's I'm done. I found the person I want to be with.
Oh, that's
I'm
sweet.
not, I wasn't going, I'll stay on Match to see what's out there. I knew that I wanted to be with her. So I shut everything down immediately and I knew right away
It
that
was
she was,
Which
pretty instant, I
mm,
we both had pretty hurtful divorces, like we were both betrayed and by exes. And so what was interesting about it, I think, is, when Abe and I reconnected, because we knew each other as little kids and because we'd had this past. I remember he said this one thing to me. We were talking about when you first called me, we were talking about the marketing and the business, and then it's like, oh, I'm sorry you're divorced, and he's like, I'm sorry you're divorced, and then at one point you said, so tell me what happened, and he said it in this like voice that I immediately felt like safe. And I was like, well, let me just tell you, you know what I mean? And then the next thing you know, it was like, I couldn't turn back. Like, it was like this person made me feel so safe right out of the gate. And I think that word safe is probably so important in the world of dealing with LDRs and distance and commuter marriage. Like, you have to have that sense of safety that this person has your back, even though you're thousands of miles away from them. I think
Mhm.
it's probably the bread and butter of what makes this work. Don't you think, Abe?
yeah, for sure. And yeah, and on top of all that stuff, our connection was so incredible. We just had so many of the same interests and so many things in common. We got the same sense of humor, and it was everything I was looking for, and
Yeah.
more. So
Right.
mm, mm. And when you saw each other again after you started chatting a little bit, talking about business, about your divorces, how was that? How did it feel?
Oh, it was awesome. So Abe flew out here to California, and he got a hotel because I had children that were in high school at the time, and we didn't feel it was appropriate for him to either meet or come to my house yet.
right, but also it was I just was on a whim, like I'm coming out, I'm flying out.
Oh yeah,
It
that's
wasn't like,
right.
oh, we'll plan a trip. It was like I need to see you. I'm coming out.
And it made
And
me cry. Remember, it made me cry.
yeah, yeah. So it was
Because
like,
I was like, this guy's so engaged. Like, he was like, I have to see you. I'm coming out. So he booked his flight within a week of us talking. Now we didn't, but for some reason we couldn't see each other for several. It was like 4 weeks before we
mhm,
actually met. So
right.
we started talking, and about 4 weeks later he flew out. Is that right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we were
it was quick.
talking like every night for hours and
Right.
hours.
Mm,
Yeah, up leading up to that.
So he stayed in this hotel, and on my way down to go see him, it was he was staying in San Diego, and I'm up in a place about 40 minutes away. So I'm driving to this hotel, and Tina, I started having a panic attack because I was like, I haven't dated anybody in 22 years. Like, I was in a long-term marriage. Like, I was freaking out. And then I was like, and I'm going to his hotel. Like, is this like a booty call? Like, I don't know. I'm freaking out. Like it just scared me. I was scared. And
yeah.
I kept telling myself, it's just a date like any other date. Like, you're gonna go, even though he flew out, you don't owe him anything. And so you're gonna go, and you're gonna go on your date. And if there's a great connection, there's a great connection. If there's not, you'll say, thank you very kindly, sir. I'm moving on, right? But I think that's important for people who have that first meeting. You don't, just because you've been talking to somebody and just because they're flying to see you, you don't owe them anything. So just relax and go and see if the face-to-face connection is the same as your online connection. And oh boy, was it. It was like we have this memory we joke about where I drove into the hotel parking lot. I told him he was there. I told him I was there. And then he walked out onto this like balcony. There was like this balcony that he walked out to on the way down the stairs. And he tipped his head and he kind of flashed me this smile. And I was like, oh my gosh. Cause I remember telling my girlfriends, like, what if the chemistry is not the same in person as it is online? And I almost passed out. Like it was so amazing. And then you ran down, and I'll let you tell the rest, but
Well, I just kept telling her, I'm the first thing I'm going to do when I see you is kiss you because I just need to kiss you. And I'm typically not that kind of guy. I'm not like, Don Juan, Mr. Dapper Dan kind of thing. I'm pretty nervous when it comes to that stuff too. But I thought if I don't, I'm going to, kick myself. So yeah, first thing I did was walk down, kind of rush up to her, and I grabbed her and held her in my arms and just gave her a kiss. And then we just kind of held each other, staring at each other like, oh my God, is this happening kind of thing. And
yeah.
right. And we had an amazing weekend, a lot of fun. And it was just so amazing to reconnect again.
Yeah. It was scary, but ended up being amazing.
Yeah, I think we were both really nervous about, I hope this is going to be okay. I hope this is going to work. I hope, because we had I think we even told each other we loved each other before we met.
Yeah.
Again.
Wow.
We were
It
on
was
the
quick.
phone, like, this is so crazy in terms of how we're connecting. I'm already like in love with you.
Yeah, it was quick. But I think too, being a little bit older, we had a real, I think not that you can't fall in love when you're young, but I think being older, like we had a better concept of like what we wanted. And
Right.
maybe that's not fair for me to say, but we both kind of really knew what we were looking for. And
Yeah, especially, you both just came out of a divorce, out of longer relationships. And as you just said, I can only agree with that, even though if I'm just 30, but between me being 20 or between me being 30 nowadays, like there's a huge difference.
Yeah, you do. You grow, you know more about yourself.
Exactly, definitely. And you know what you want and you just go for it. And if it feels right, why not?
Right.
Exactly. And I think that's what's important about, we're on several Facebook forums of people talking about their concerns. And you do hear a lot of people who haven't met their significant other yet or their partner yet. And they're scared. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's a beautiful risk in life. Love is always a risk. But you always, and some people are going to go and hit the jackpot. It's going to be just as amazing in person as if it's not. But some people are going to show up and go, this isn't the same and it's not right and I don't feel safe. And if you don't, that's okay too. But good for you for taking a risk, right?
Exactly.
Well, and the things I've seen on those forums, though, it seems like more often than not, when they finally meet,
It's amazing.
they fall in love. They're like, it's
Yeah.
better than I thought it would be. So
Yeah, because I think you can tell a lot online. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
on the phones.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how it went down with Nacho and me as well. We met online and then we met. And for me, there was this instant connection. For him, it took a little bit longer, but I knew for sure that I would love to try it out and like go the direction I felt was right, And even though if there were like some people telling like, hey, you're so crazy, how can you date someone? Like first of all, there's a language barrier. So there are like so many aspects for others at least, that they would consider this relationship not to work out, for example. And I guess you had the same. I don't know how family, friends, the people surrounding you reacted on you just going for it and to take the chance. But I can imagine maybe you made some similar experience.
It's very interesting because we had some naysayers kind of like,
Mhm.
what are you doing, like why would you do that, and then there were other people that were very like encouraging and excited for us, like this is fantastic for you, like take a risk, like do something different, you know what I mean? I think,
Mhm.
but I think I think the people that really more expressed concern, it was more based on they just knew how badly, like in my life, by the way, I'm speaking for my life.
Mhm.
It was because they knew I'd just been through such devastation with my divorce. And so it was
Mhm.
like, I think the people that were like, oh, wait, like, how's that going to work? They were just worried about me getting hurt again. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, what do you think, Abe? I mean, I think most people were supportive. Some people think we're a little bit
Yeah, I
crazy.
mean,
I think some people still think we're a little crazy.
well, I'm sorry that your friends were jerks. Mine were fine.
Nobody was a jerk. They were just concerned. Some people were concerned, but most people were excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the majority of people, at least on my end, too, were very excited and were like, "Dude, go for it. That's amazing," kinda thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. And we didn't have like the international couples, the language barrier and the kind of like, hey, going to a different country. So I could see how people would, maybe in your life be concerned. But I think it's that component of where you take in people's concern and consider it, but you still have to make your own choice for your own life, you know?
Mhm.
Mm.
And if
Exactly.
you want to take that risk, take that risk. And it's interesting because I think we have had a lot of people, especially our age, as there's different people who've been through divorces and things like that. We've had probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 couples say, you know what, I'm dating this person long distance because of you guys. I've watched your story unfold. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for this too. So to me, that makes me super excited that we've inspired other couples to try it out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's been cool.
Mm. Because you were from the beginning, you knew that this is going to work out no matter how many miles there are in between you guys. By the way, how many miles are separating you?
I don't even, it's like 17. Is it like 17,000 or something? I don't know. I'd have
No,
to look it up.
yeah, yeah, we'd have to look into that to be exact, but
I
I'm in
don't think
Fort Worth, and she's in Temecula, California, so
so. We're a
we're
couple states
it's a
away, 3 hours by flight.
yeah, so whatever that
Mm.
is, maybe is it
Look it
1,200?
up, Google it real quick. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but you're right. Like it's one of those things we knew right away, like we're gonna make this work. But
Mhm.
I think that the thing that honestly, if I could be honest with you, like the distance really never scared me that much. I think for us, it's more the amount of time because we
Mm.
don't. It's not like our situations. Every couple with distance has challenges for different reasons. So, for
Mhm.
example, like you were talking about, international couples may have the challenge of different languages or different countries and things like that. We have the challenge of like our distance is going to be for a long time.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for 5 years and we have 4 more to go. So it's going to be like a full 9 years. And so when we first embarked on the journey, that was the only part that made me go, 9 years, like I don't know if I can do this. And then Abe was the one, um, because I'm very like in my life, it's like I have my 5 year goals and I set my goals and I meet my goals and I'm very structured that way. Abe is a little more live outside the box, don't worry about it, right? And he really at one point said to me, I think our plan needs to be no plan. We know we love each other. We know
Yeah.
we want to be together. Let's
Yeah.
just take this risk and we don't know because there was question of whether I would move out there once my kids went to college, but I have a practice here and I have employees and they were all freaking out like, you're not going to leave, are you? And my kids still wanted to be able to come home from college,
Mm.
so it was, I just didn't want to pick up and move even after my kids went to college. So I think, Abe, you really helped me in that component of being able to say, let's live outside the box a little bit. Our plan can be no plan for a while.
Mhm.
And then we'll just see what unfolds. We'll see where God takes us. And we realized once I let go a little bit, let go of control, um, we really have found a rhythm that works for us. And what's exciting is now that my children are both out of the house and in college, I can go stay in Texas for a long time. So, like for example, I'm headed there for 10 days and I'll take all my clients online while I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a therapist, so I have that ability to do that.
Mm.
So we're making it work, you know?
Mm. So we were talking about that earlier, about the aspect that you try to see each other obviously as often as possible, but then it's also a lot of money you spend on the flight tickets, especially, even though you're both living in the US, but a flight ticket back and forth, unfortunately, is not very cheap, especially if you have to do it a couple of times per year. Um, how are you dealing with that situation? May I ask, like, do you
Yeah.
set a goal being like, okay, let's just try at least once a month to see each other? Or if there are 6 or 7 weeks where you don't see each other in person, how does it make you feel? And what do you do actually to make you feel close to each other again if there's a long period of not seeing each
Right,
other?
right.
I know
Well, and
so
this is
many
where,
questions, sorry.
right. No, that's okay. And this is where I want to talk very respectfully because we do want to say we do know a lot of the international couples don't have the same luxury as we do. And so I just, before I say anything, I want to tell all of you in international relationships, I'm sorry that some of you have had border closures and not been able to see each other. But Abe and I have been lucky in that we haven't had any travel bans in the US. We did take more time in between visits during the height of COVID before we were vaccinated to be careful. But yeah, we try every 2 to 3 weeks, and sometimes we're able to do that. But sometimes we go as long as 4 or 5 weeks. This last time, I think the longest we've ever gone is 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Is that accurate? And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's still, even though we're kind of older and more established in our careers, we also have like house payments and kids in college. I mean, like money's tight sometimes,
Right.
um so money has been a factor sometimes, and also just kids schedules when you've got kids in sports and college. And there's just times where we were like, well, we just can't do it this weekend, we can't do it this weekend, and so we've had those challenges.
Yeah, our last podcast is about travel tips, and it's about how you can be more proactive in how you buy tickets and how you plan travel, and so we've learned those things the hard way, and so it's a lot of times it's buying tickets months out, so we can
Mm.
save and not
Hmm.
only spend 275 per ticket rather than 590.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it's trying to be, it's planning and being smart in how you do it, but there are ways, but yeah, you have to be proactive.
And we had to really make travel be a part of our budget. It was like once we started dating, it was like, okay, if we're going to do this has to become like a staple in our budget. So like we had to like put that money aside.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
so I'm not sure I answered all your questions because
You did.
was that okay?
You did answer the questions. Yeah, sorry.
Y-
It was like three
No,
questions at once.
no, that's okay.
What you've mentioned, I mean, like, I don't think that there's such a big difference between what you guys are doing dating on distance within the US or what Nacho and I used to do dating on distance on two continents, as well as other couples like having several continents involved. Because in the end, you also have to plan it and you also have to manage it
Yeah,
somewhat somehow and organize it. And as you just said, Eileen, set money aside in order for being able to travel. Like in the end, it's for me it's the same. So for me it's no difference because you are in a long distance relationship and you're making it work. And what's on top of all this is that you are married on distance. And you mentioned it before already, that once you got into this relationship, you guys knew that this is going to be for a period of most probably 9 years. So 5 years you managed already, and there are
Yes.
4 more years to come until you will be able to close the distance. And
Yes.
even though if this is not like a goal, like an international couple like Nasha and I would have, like, hey, let's just close the distance as soon as possible. But you know that you eventually in a few years you're going to manage to close it. I would like to know, how will it look like? So do you have plans already? What is going to come next in the next few years in your lives?
Well, I was actually from California in the first place, and so I miss California and being
Mhm.
there. And so I think there's no question that I will be moving uh, to California, and my boys, depending upon where they want to go to college, may end up coming out here too. And so I guess we'll see when that happens. But yeah, for sure, I'm coming out, and we'll be able to close the distance after my boys are done with high school.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was never really so Abe's in Texas, I'm in California, and Texas is beautiful and we enjoy it when I'm there. And so we have a home both in California and Texas. And but we just it was never even really considered. California is both we're both California kids, we're beach kids. So that's always where we decided we would close our distance. And we're gonna live in our home here in California. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. We just don't know, like, our kids are of the age where, they're like my 2 are in college, but sometimes they come home for spurts of time, and then his will be in college, so we don't know if they're gonna stay in Texas for college or whether they're gonna come to California for college, we don't know, but no matter what, this will be our home base for the whole family, and everybody's super
Mhm.
excited. And, all the kids are excited for that season too, so it is gonna be fun.
So they adapted to this new situation quite fast as well. May I ask, once you started dating, and how was it for them? I know I'm jumping, but
No,
I hope
that's
that's
okay.
fine.
We love talking about our kids. Yeah, all of our kids were super my kids love Abe. He's so funny, and Abe is very good about not trying to, like, he makes the relationship very natural, so he didn't
Mm,
push it. And I think in when you blend families, if you do try to just make the kids all love each other right away, it's awkward for kids, especially when they're teenagers and older. So actually, the distance ended up being very healthy for our blended family because it goes very slow. It's not like Abe and I got married and then they moved in and my son would have been like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, who are the, you know? So, they've gotten to know each other through time. And then I'll let you speak for your boys, but
Yeah, my boys, when Elaine and I started dating, were 10 years old, and they loved the just getting to know her. I mean, and she's so natural with kids anyway, and so like having a second mom was very nice for them, and so they were
mm,
just excited. And then they were born in California, and then we moved out of there when they were like 3. But so any chance they get to go back and enjoy the state and the beach and everything else, but also they got an extra set of grandparents out of it, and then they have a great
mm.
stepsister and stepbrother, and they all get along really well. And so, yeah, I mean, the slow blending was nice. That would get everyone a chance to kind of get to know each other over time.
Mhm.
my son Justice, he's 19, and he said it's weird. I don't even think of them as like stepbrothers. I just think of them as like cousins. And so they get along like cousins. Like, they're just super happy. We do a lot of family game nights, as I told you, online, but we do them in the house, when we're all together. So the kids all get together probably twice a year. So every summer and every Christmas, they're all together because we can't fly everybody out all the time.
Yeah, that's where it gets
Um,
interesting.
Right, but we went and stayed in a cabin this summer, with my parents and all 4 kids, and it was a blast. We had card games every night, and the kids really have a fun time together.
Yeah.
Wow, this sounds amazing. I'm so
Yeah,
so
that
happy for you guys that you made it all work. I honestly don't know what you say, because, like, especially this topic, I'm just imagining it, how your last 5 years just developed like they are now, like you just said. Elaine, that you were in a dark place and then you opened a dating app, and after a short while of being on it, after one day you were crying, and you weren't like sure if you could ever be able to love someone or to get to a point where you might be fully happy again, and then you got in contact. You hit it off from the beginning, even though you knew each other for quite a while already, which is just crazy to think about. And now you make it all work, like two families, blending two families, dating or not dating, being married on distance. I mean, this is just so crazy. And then knowing, like, I don't know, it's just it feels like out of a movie, your story.
Aw.
If
Well,
I
you're
may
making me
say.
feel really good about myself. I'm going to have a little spring in my step today. I'm like, wow, thank you for validating us that way. Right, Abe? It's like, oh, wow. Gosh, we have been through a lot and we have made
You
this
have
work. It's been awesome.
you can also be very, very, very proud of yourself, and I guess you
Oh,
are. And I just love looking back at specific points of your lives and being like, hey, we did that. We really made it. We made it work. And it's just going to be from now on, it's going to be even more amazing. I don't know if this is an expression in English or if you could say it like this.
yeah.
To get this conversation to an end, because I know, Eileen, you have to head out in a while. What I would love to know is, like, as mentioned, you have been to quite a few things in your life already, like the things that happened, the divorce, then getting to know, dating again. For someone who's in a similar situation like you guys, or like you guys have been, is there any advice you would like to give?
Well, there's one thing that I've often said, and I think that with the technology today, and there's so many different ways to communicate, that if you are looking for a relationship or looking to find love, and don't draw a radius around yourself, meaning that I have to fall in love with someone within 5 miles of where I live, or I have to fall in love with someone within 10 miles of where I live. It's with the advent of the internet and everything else and all the ways to communicate now, it can span, thousands of miles into a different country, to a different experience. And I think you should really consider that when you're looking for somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. There's no borders on love, right? So I think you just be ready and open to taking a risk.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think too, to kind of add to that is it's okay to, like what you said, Abe, it's kind of okay to live outside the box a little bit. And it's okay to take, love is a risk. It's always a risk, but that's what makes love so exciting,
Mhm.
right? It's when you take the risk and it works out. Sometimes you
Right.
take the risk and it doesn't. And that's where you kind of have to like be kind to yourself and be proud that you even took the risk. But when it does work out, it makes it all the more sweeter. And, Abe really helped me with that component of saying it's okay if the plan feels a little crazy or it's a little outside the box. That we aren't going to focus on what the world thinks or what other people think. We're going to focus on us. And sometimes crazy's good. Sometimes different's good.
Hmm.
Different, yeah, that's a good word. Different and crazy, because crazy is considered to be crazy because it's just different to what's normal.
Right.
Yeah. It's
And real quick, I wanted to tell you, I looked
Mhm.
it up. We are 1,159 miles away from each other.
1,159 miles.
That's what it says between California and Texas. So
And the
I
time
just thought
difference of 2 hours, right?
Right.
2 hours, yeah.
2 hours, yeah. Yeah, that's quite a lot. I mean, that's not like, okay, I just jump into the car and I'll be there in 5 hours thing.
Right,
Oh,
right.
Not
No, it
really.
would take us, I think, what was it take us?
20
Like
hours drive. I think.
20 hours by car.
Yeah.
So we do fly, yeah. We haven't done
Yeah,
the car. I guess when we close the distance, we might be right with a big truck and
Right.
a bunch of your.
Yeah.
I guess that's the time we'll be doing it.
To because we were talking obviously also about your podcast, guys. This is how I got to know you, or how you caught my attention first, because I saw your podcast and then I followed you on Instagram. What is it you're exactly doing in your podcast, and where
That's a
can
good question.
everyone who's listening right now, where can they find you? Obviously, I will also link it in the side notes, by the way.
Right. What are we doing in our podcast, Dave? So our podcast, yes, it's called Love is in the Air, and it's supporting commuter marriages and long distance relationships. And to be honest with you, we just always had this heart to like help others. And it was during COVID, we're like, let's start a podcast, and it was just more for fun. And then we realized, oh, wow, like a lot of people are doing this and people are really needing support and help. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been practicing psychotherapy for over 26 years. And so I do talk a lot about, there is a serious side to our podcast where I do talk a lot about the research and what it has to say about healthy relationships. And I try to bring it in. I'm trying to learn more myself about that component. Abe brings in all the inappropriate jokes and makes it really, he's so funny.
That's true. I can confirm that.
Yeah, we get very, very silly. So if someone's in the mood for all seriousness, we are not for you. But if you want a little bit of information and support and also a lot of silliness, then we hope you join us. And then our Instagram support page is at Commuter Marriage Support. That's what we're on Instagram. And then we're working on getting our website up, so it'll be launched pretty soon here.
Yeah, and then of course we're Love is in the Air podcast, and one of the things that I think that we do, even though we're centric to long distance relationships and commuter marriages, it's just great relationship advice across the board, and dating tips and marriage tips, and again, Elaine brings all the knowledge behind it. So we're really, we specialize in that, but it's really for everybody.
Yeah, I even have a couple friends that just listen to it just because they're like, it's just funny, so that's
this is actually, I should send greets from Nacho, who's, as I said, sitting on the other side of the table right now.
Hi, Nacho. Hi.
They're saying hi. He's saying hi too. But when I was listening to your podcast, like, he was like, actually, is this the couple you're going to interview? I was like, yes. Oh, they sound so fun. He's like, that was the first thing he said. Like, they sound so fun.
We are fun.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm really more fun, but I'm kidding. He's sometimes grumpy, but mostly he's really fun. It's funny, even when he was here this weekend, he was making me laugh so hard. We were at this like winery and he was making me laugh so hard. We were getting like dirty looks from people. And I was like, I'm in for a treat for the rest of my life, because he's just going to make me laugh until I'm old and gray. So it'll be fun.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. So I hope that we guys will stay in contact so I can follow your journey as well. I hope you will keep on doing what you're doing, especially with the podcast, because I know that there are a lot of people out there.
Oh my goodness. And we feel the same way about watching your story, and we'd love to have you on our podcast too. So we'll have to arrange a time to have you guys.
Yeah.
Because I just love what you're doing. I love it. I love that you're in a van and just cruising around the world. If I could give any advice from my 50-year-old self to any of the listeners that are in their 30s and 40s and 30s and 20s, do these crazy things, because it's so fantastic that you guys are just embracing life and sharing with the rest of us. I look forward to seeing your story every time.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And if you like listening to us in general, please consider to give us a review to wherever you're listening to our podcast. This is just a way to help us moving forward, keep on going what we're doing, and that would just mean a lot. And yeah, if you have any questions, you will find us on Instagram or Facebook. It's International Love Story. Have a wonderful day, have a wonderful morning, have a wonderful night, and hear you in 2 weeks. Bye!